Welcome, listeners, to a very special episode of Ideas That Change the World, where philosophy, history, and economics collide. I am your host, VANSH CHOPRA, and today we are looking into the heart of economic theory, class struggle, and revolutionary ideas. But I am not alone. Joining me is none other than the father of Marxist theory, Karl Marx himself. Thank you for being here, Karl Marx. Good day, Karl Marx. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. To start, could you please introduce yourself?
Good day. I am Karl Marx, a philosopher, economist, and revolutionary thinker. My work focuses on understanding how societies are structured, especially under capitalism. I have written books such as The Communist Manifesto with Friedrich Engels and Das Kapital, where I analyze how capitalism works and why it leads to inequality. My main argument is that history is shaped by class struggle, the conflict between those who own wealth and those who work for them. I believe that one day, workers will rise up and create a fairer society where resources are shared by all.
Okay, so what motivated you to become an economist and study capitalism so deeply?
My motivation came from witnessing the suffering and inequality caused by capitalism. I saw how workers labored long hours in factories, yet remained poor, while factory owners lived in luxury. I wanted to understand why this was happening and how society could be changed for the better. At first, I studied philosophy, but I soon realized that simply thinking about the world was not enough. I wanted to change it. This led me to study economics, history, and politics. I wanted to understand how wealth and power were distributed and why some people had so much while others had so little. The Industrial Revolution made these problems even worse. In cities, workers were packed into slums, living in terrible conditions, while business owners got richer. I knew that capitalism was not just an economic system, it was a system of exploitation. That is why I dedicated my life to studying it and writing about how workers could fight for a better future. I did not just want to explain the world, I wanted to help change it. That is why I became an economist and a revolutionary thinker.
Okay, so tell me, some people argue that capitalism has helped create wealth and innovation. How would you respond to that question?
It is true that capitalism has led to new inventions, industry, and economic growth. But at what cost? The wealth created does not go to the workers, it goes to the business owners. The workers still struggle with low wages and long hours. Capitalism is like a machine that only benefits the rich. It creates inequality, crises, and exploitation. Yes, it produces wealth, but it does so by taking advantage of the working class. Instead of letting a few people control everything, we need a system where wealth is shared fairly.
Okay, you said that capitalism is based on exploitation. Could you please explain it more? And can it be even fair?
No, capitalism cannot be truly fair because it is built on inequality. The system depends on business owners making a profit, which means they must pay workers less than the value of what they produce. Even if wages increase, the owners will always have more power and control. Some governments try to regulate capitalism by introducing minimum wages or worker protections, but this does not change the fact that wealth remains concentrated in the hands of a few. The only way to create a truly fair society is to replace capitalism with a system where workers own and control production.
Critics say that communalism removes incentives for hard work. If everyone is equal, why would people work hard?
People do not work hard only because they want money. They work hard when they feel ownership and pride in what they do. Under capitalism, workers are treated like machines, doing repetitive tasks for low wages. Under communism, work would be done for the benefit of society, and people would have control over their labor. When people work together for the common good, they are motivated by purpose, not just survival. In a fair system, people contribute because they care about their community, not because they fear poverty.
Okay, so tell me, has there ever been a successful communist society?
True communism has never been fully realized. Some countries have tried to implement my ideas, but they still operated within a world dominated by capitalism. Many of these governments became authoritarian, which is not what I envisioned. Communism is not about a small group controlling everything, it is about the workers themselves having power. A real communist society would be based on democracy, cooperation, and shared resources, not dictatorship.
Okay, so what do you think the role of government should be in the economy?
In a capitalist system, the government mostly serves the interests of the ruling class, the bourgeoisie. It protects private property, enforces laws that benefit business owners, and suppresses worker uprisings. Even when governments introduce reforms, like higher wages or worker protections, they do so only to keep capitalism stable, not to truly help workers. In a communist society, the role of government would be different. Instead of serving the rich, it would serve the people. The government would ensure that resources are shared fairly, that everyone has access to necessities like healthcare and education, and that production is controlled by the workers, not by private owners.
So tell me, why do you believe that wealth is so unequally distributed in the capitalist societies?
Wealth is unequally distributed because capitalism is designed to benefit the ruling class, the bourgeoisie, at the expense of the working class, the proletariat. Business owners accumulate wealth by paying workers less than the value of what they produce. This system ensures that profits flow upward, concentrating wealth in the hands of a few while workers struggle to survive. Additionally, capitalism thrives on competition, meaning small businesses are often crushed by larger corporations. Over time, wealth and power become more and more concentrated.
Okay, so under the capitalism, prices are determined by demand and supply. How should prices of goods be determined in a communist society?
In a truly communist society, the goal is not to maximize profit but to ensure that everyone has what they need. Instead of markets setting prices based on competition and scarcity, the economy would be planned based on social needs. Prices, as they exist under capitalism, would not function the same way in communism. Goods would be distributed based on need, not on who can afford them. The focus would be on producing enough for everyone rather than allowing prices to fluctuate based on market forces that benefit the wealthy. However, in the transition from capitalism to communism, there may still be some system for determining value, perhaps based on the amount of socially necessary labor required to produce goods. Over time, as production becomes more advanced and abundant, money and prices would become unnecessary, and goods would be freely available to all.
Okay, so tell me, how would property rights change under communism?
The biggest change would be that the means of production, factories, land, and resources would no longer be privately owned by a small group of people. Instead, they would belong to everyone and be used for the good of society, not for private profit. This doesn't mean that people wouldn't have personal property. You would still have your home, your clothes, and your belongings. What would change is that no one would be able to own things like entire apartment buildings just to charge rent or own factories just to exploit workers. Instead, workers and communities would manage these resources together.
So what would happen to landlords and real estate owners?
No one would be able to own land or buildings just to make money from others. Housing should be a basic right, not a business. Under capitalism, landlords make money by charging rent, even though they don't actually create anything. Workers build homes, workers maintain them, but landlords profit just by owning them. In communism, housing would be managed in a way that ensures everyone has a home, rather than a few owning multiple properties while others are homeless. This doesn't mean people wouldn't have personal homes, it just means no one would get rich by forcing others to pay rent.
At last, if you could give one final message to today's worker, what would it be?
Do not accept the conditions imposed upon you as unchangeable. The ruling class wants you to believe that poverty, inequality, and struggle are just the way things are. But these are the results of a system designed to benefit the few at the expense of the many. Workers have the power to change the world. You create the wealth, you run the factories, the offices, and the farms. Without you, nothing functions. The moment you unite and demand change, capitalism will no longer be able to hold you down. Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains.
And that brings us to the end of today's conversation with Karl Marx. Whether you agree or disagree with his theories or challenge them, one thing is clear: his ideas continue to shape how we see the world. Thank you for turning in the ideas that change the world. I am your friend VANSH CHOPRA, and see you guys next time. Thank you.